Hey, hey, hey. Happy Thursday. Come on in. Pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you by, shockingly enough, thegaminggang.com, of which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief. So welcome aboard. Tonight is Thursday, June 8th, 2023. This is live stream 930. So welcome aboard. If you are not overly familiar with this show, let me point out, super casual around here. Just hanging out, talking about the latest in tabletop gaming news, and normally we will take a first look at a game. Well, throughout the month of June, I am sprinkling live reviews into episodes of the Dispatch as well. And all week long, we have been taking a look at some role-playing game releases, and I've been sharing my thoughts about them. Tonight will be no different. That's right. I will be reviewing Hard City from Osprey Games. Yes, I know. I keep referring to it as Hard City. But I think I would just, pronounce it normally the first time around. So we are going to be diving on in. I will be sharing my thoughts about this noirish role-playing game in just a while. So if you are tuning in because you want to check out my review of Hard City, let me point out we tackle the tabletop gaming news first around here. So it'll probably be, I'm guessing, about 40 minutes before we jump on into that review. So if you're watching live, kick your feet up, relax. You're in the home stretch. You're almost at the weekend. Be good to yourself. Now, of course, if you are watching this 30 minutes or more after the show has ended, there will be timestamps in the show notes. So if you're impatient and you just got to get to that review, well, you can. You'll be able to click on the timestamps and jump ahead if you would like. Now, of course, depending on the device you might happen to be watching this on, those timestamps might be right there in the timeline in front of you. All depends. Also, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more that you will not find here on the YouTube channel. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Lastly, this is a live show, so that means there is chat available. It's not on screen. It's one of the ways I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. And you must be a subscriber to the channel for at least 48 hours before you can take part in chat. But if you want to say howdy, maybe you got a question, a comment, maybe there's something about Hard City you'd like to know more about or get a closer look at, by all means, chime in. I will do my best to respond. Should also mention, this week, the Dispatch has been brought to you by Armored Gaming and their Knight RPG Kickstarter. Hail and well met. Knight is a tabletop storytelling and role-playing game where you and your friends get to live out your knightly, chivalric fantasy with your friends. It's inspired by Welsh myth, The Legends of King Arthur, the King Arthur Pendragon RPG by Chaosium. Yes, that's a good one. Into the Odd by Chris McDowell, The Forged in the Dark games, begun by John Harper and Microscope by Ben Robbins. In this game, you are a knight, though exactly what sort of a knight is up to you. Perhaps you're a valorous tourney knight, skilled with the lance, or a master of occult lore. Perhaps you're a manipulator in the courts with your spies whispering secrets in your ear, or a battlefield commander ready to protect the realm. Whoever you create, your knight undoes evil and protects the innocent in Avalon, a fantastic land of magic and myth. You slay monsters, drive back barbarian hordes, woo a spouse for power, fall in love with someone else, and die dueling your brother to the death for honor. The game isn't just about your knight, though. Between quests, time passes, and the game provides procedures to tell grander stories. Perhaps your lands may be beset by raids, or a pagan faith appeals to give them safe harbor, and you or someone in your house may find themselves in an illicit affair. You also create factions and points of interest about the world, which become, in turn, the seeds for later quests. This game is designed to be welcoming to any who wish to strap on armor and fight for glory. There are no limitations to creating individuals of many types of faith, ideal, gender, or other personal identity, concept, or disposition. Finally, your first character is not your last. In time, as your knights die or retire, their heirs take over the leadership of the house. When you've played 3 generations of knights, the campaign is over. This campaign is halfway funded, a little beyond halfway. You can secure the hardcover for a pledge of around $27, because this is coming from Australia, so there is that exchange rate. Or you can grab just the PDF with a pledge of around $14. This campaign does run through June 19th. So check it out. I also have a news piece over on thegaminggang.com about Knight as well. So give it a peek. All right, so let's see. Who do we got in chat tonight? Well. First out the gate. In fact, they were preempting me in chat. Is the Motor City Madman. Yes, the Madman himself, one of our chat moderators, happens to be with us, as is Tessie Trekkie, John Miscola, Kevin R. Smith, Edge, Edge for Life. Wait, I know they visited with us before. I know that. Flaming Heron, our other chat moderator, as well as a third chat moderator, Sarah D, is also hanging out. Stray Kismet is here, Kathy Evans, and I think I have said hello to everyone. So Tessie Trekkie says, wait, Knight is Australian? The shipping won't cost me more than the pledge? No, it's local to you. So, I think it's, X for Life. I'm just going to say X for Life. Says, love Osprey Games. Feel like they're a successor to DWD Studios, Barebones Fantasy, and others. They have been rolling out some interesting role-playing games. And of course, I will be reviewing one of the more interesting ones in just a bit. So very nice. Very cool. So Tessie Trekkie says, Jeff, stop making me spend money. I'm not twisting anybody's arms. I'm just here telling you what's going on. That's it. So do want to mention real quickly, and I will jump on into the news. I am doing something a little different tonight because I noticed last night's show, I checked out some of it online, and it was very strange. We got into these like little spots where it was like the video stopped, but there was still audio, and then it would pick back up. It was almost like it was skipping. And I got to be honest, I had not seen that before. Now, I have seen streams where there's just little pieces that have completely dropped off. That was like, what the hell's going on there? So what I'm doing tonight is I'm actually not recording this stream. Gulp. So I always record it just in case something were to happen and say half of the show gets dropped for some reason. YouTube doesn't pick it up or whatever. I always have that just in case. I won't tonight. So Kevin says it's kind of doing that now intermittently. Damn, and I was hoping, really was hoping that it was going to be okay. I'm going to take a look at something real quick. I think I can change this on the fly. So what I'm basically trying to do is I'm trying to get the highest quality image to you. In fact, last night's video with the overhead shots, when we were taking a look at Empire and Ruins, looked pretty nice. Looked pretty good. And I'm using a new codec. And this codec is not something that's super well supported. It is supported by YouTube. You can upload it to YouTube. And I don't know. So hopefully, so what I had done is I was devoting a little more processing power to the video so that it would be a little bit of a sharper image. So I just dropped that down. So hopefully it is not kind of doing that little stop and go. Because if that's the case, then I'm probably gonna have to not use this codec and have to go with not as sharp an image. So we shall see. So Kevin, you'll have to let me know if you're still getting that intermittent kind of choppiness. Because even the opening of the video last night was like, you saw me and it was like, and you heard me saying, hey, happy Wednesday. And all of a sudden it's like me going Wednesday. So Tessie Trekkie said, famous last words. Let's see what this does. The last time someone said that to them, Tessie Trekkie wound up in the hospital. Yeah, yikes. Well, at least they weren't last words then. Maybe they were the last words you heard at that point in time. Kevin says it seems better now. Fingers crossed. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right, let's jump on into the news because I got a lot of news tonight. And there's a big news piece. Well, might be big for some people and other people might be like, whatever. But first of all, this fall is going to see the release of Forever Home, a game of second chances for shelter dogs. That's a mouthful. From Birdwood Games, here's what I know. Welcome to Forever Home, the puzzly pattern building game about second chances for shelter dogs. Using a combination of the placement, set collection, and drafting, you and your friends take on the role of shelter workers. Take it in turns to bring dogs into your shelter, complete training cards, and match pups up with new families. You'll be competing for valuable shelter commendations, as well as gaining reputation for training and rehoming the dogs in your care. At the end of the game, the shelter worker with the most reputation is the winner. Features quick and simple turns. There's also a unique solo mode and a second advanced side to the player board. Forever Home is a replayable, easy to love, abstract game. There is a short, and when I say short, it's about 30 seconds in length. Not 30 minutes, not 3 hours. It's kind of a callback to a previous episode this week. It is 30 seconds. So let's take a peek.
Birdwood Games presents Forever Home by the designers of Dog Park, Lottie and Jack Hazel. Forever Home is a competitive pattern-building game for 1 to 5 players, which plays in 20 to 45 minutes. Using a combination of tile placement, set collection, and drafting, players take on the role of shelter workers, trying to match pups in need with new families. With 3 simple actions, players will bring dogs into their shelters, prepare them for their new home by completing training cards, and match them up with prospective new people. Train and rehome the dogs in your care and see how your reputation grows. Forever Home comes to life with expressive art by Dominique Vassy, screen-printed dog scoring markers, quality linen-finished components throughout, and much more. Forever Home, the game of second chances for shelter dogs, will be released to retail in September 2023.
Forever Home, a game of second chances for shelter dogs, is for 1 to 5 players, ages 8 and up, plays in 20 to 45 minutes. It's going to carry an MSRP of $32.99. It's kind of an interesting MSRP when it arrives this September. Now, you may recall Birdwood Games is the same company that publishes Dog Park, which, if you saw the first look video, you know this is jam-packed with all these cards, with all these different dog breeds that looks really, really nice. Well, I should also point out, stay tuned, a week from Monday. Oh, damn it, I said Monday again. A week from Tuesday. A week from Tuesday, I'll be sharing my review right here on the Dispatch. So, not next week, week after that, I will be sharing a week full of board game reviews. So, stay tuned for that. Flaming Heron says, I see a theme here. Tessie Trekkie says, this game looks gorgeous. Yeah, check out Dog Park. And it looks like we might have the same artist. Or I think there were a few artists, I guess, with Dog Park. But yeah, if you are a dog lover, then this is certainly a game you're going to want to check out. Because, of course, you're also finding the dogs their forever homes. Sweet! On to the next news piece. This is the one that I'm thinking a lot of people are pumped about, and then other people are sort of like, yeah. The classic Heroescape will return to game tables by way of Renegade Game Studios. There was an announcement today. Here it is. Renegade Game Studios is excited to announce they are finalizing expansion of their licensing relationship with Hasbro, a global leader in play, to produce the best-selling Heroescape tabletop game. Originally proposed for relaunch in October 2022 by Avalon Hill on Hasbro Pulse's crowdfunding platform, HasLab, fans shared an outpouring of support for the game's revival. Now the organizations have come together to usher in the long-awaited return of Heroescape for the hobby, mass, and specialty markets. Renegade will also partner with Hasbro Pulse to make Heroescape available to as wide an audience as possible. Fans will get to experience classic elements of the game they love with all new content, alongside the introduction of terrain packs, faction boxes, and more. Going forward, Renegade hopes to introduce new models in a variety of configurations and price points for both new and hardcore Heroescape players. Heroescape brought a lot of people into the hobby gaming market, and to this day, there is a robust and passionate community. We look forward to growing that community and continuing to offer new and exciting models for gamers to enjoy, said Scott Gaeta, president and publisher of Renegade Game Studios. Additionally, we will be partnering with hobby stores to give HeroScape and its community of players the best home possible, where they can make new friends and engage in exciting battles across Valhalla. Additionally, Renegade will provide online community and organized play support, including a future world championship. Hobby stores can look forward to organized play and point of purchase support at launch. Fans have been clamoring for a revival of HeroScape, and we've heard you. That's why we are tremendously excited to bring back and expand the beloved brand with the Renegade team, who are big fans themselves, says Bradley Bowman, licensing director of Global Toys and Sporting Goods at Hasbro. We're celebrating this return alongside our fans and look forward to offering existing players more ways to enjoy the game and introducing a whole new generation to HeroScape and its endless imaginative potential. So you're going to have to stay tuned for further developments. So I'm kind of curious. So I do understand that HeroScape, they tried to crowdfund it through Hasbro's own crowdfunding platform, and they got about halfway to their goal. And last November, they had stated that they were shelving HeroScape and future plans for HeroScape. So it is pretty interesting that Renegade Game Studios is jumping on board to take the reins here, because Renegade doesn't really have experience with minis. Kind of curious. I'm kind of curious. So the images I am sharing are from that canceled crowdfunding project. And gotta say, the sculpts look pretty cool. Although I think one aspect that may have been holding people back is that they're not painted. And yes, granted, the paint jobs on the original figures were not spectacular, but at least they were painted. So I think that might have been a turnoff for some people. But I don't know. I'll be the first to point out, I have never played HeroScape. Never. I haven't played Hero Quest either. Just speaking of hero games. But after the news, I'll talk about something that happened, I was going to say a few years ago. It's actually more than a decade ago. With Elliot and I doing the podcast when they shut the doors on HeroScape, and how we were kind of hated for a while by the HeroScape fans. And I can actually talk about it now. At the time, I couldn't really. Flaming Heron says, sacrilege, Jeff. Flaming Heron also points out, as long as Hasbro isn't involved with making the models, you might end up with one's missing bits. Madman says they've got a storage bin full of old HeroScape sets from when his son was little. I do understand, if I remember correctly, I think Tom Vassell over at the Dice Tower was a big HeroScape fan. I always thought it looked interesting because you could throw together all these different genres. Just like I know, I think when they shuttered HeroScape, there was a Marvel set that was out that was pretty easy to still pick up. So Christopher Rush is with us in chat, as is Sly Blue Demon. Christopher says, it's a fun game. They demoed HeroScape back when they worked for a certain company. Best Battletech terrain. Yeah, you know, that is something else. The terrain was always fairly interesting, especially if it was a game where it was hex-based. I could certainly see that. But as far as this, what you're seeing now, I don't know if that's what's going to be made available. I sort of also have the impression, I could be wrong, maybe I'm like reading too much between the lines here, but I have the feeling that you are going to have like kind of a basic set, or you'll have basic expansions. And I also have the impression that there will be very limited edition releases as well, because they mention kind of the casual gamer and the hardcore HeroScape fan. I think there are going to be some higher price tag items aimed at them, at those like fanatics. So we'll see. We will find out. But I thought that was kind of interesting. Nice to see it coming back. I hope it does well. Let's talk about some role-playing game news, because pre-orders have begun for the Star Trek Lower Decks campaign guide for the Star Trek Adventures role-playing game. Here's the skinny from Modiphius Entertainment. We're more like the cool, scrappy underdogs of the ship. Ensign Beckett Mariner. The Star Trek Lower Decks campaign guide expands upon the core Star Trek Adventures role-playing game experience by providing detailed advice on creating junior officers and using them to tell amazing Star Trek-style stories with the fun, irreverent tone presented in Star Trek Lower Decks. Whether you're cleaning holodeck biofilters, conducting an anomaly consolidation day, participating in a second contact, or enjoying some well-earned buffer time, there's always something new to encounter and learn, both within the universe and yourself and your fellow crewmates. How will you make a name for yourself and your companions? This 240-page full-color hardback Star Trek Lower Decks campaign guide will contain an extensive discussion of the state of the galaxy in the late 24th century, including updated information on the Federation, Starfleet, Pakleds, and more. Detailed information on the Lower Decks junior officer experience, including daily life, procedures, career development, and more. New life path options for player characters, including 8 new playable species, including cetaceans, Gorn, Pakleds, and exocomps. Game statistics and graphics for 7 space frames, including the California, Obina, and Parliament classes, and game statistics for over 20 ships from Starfleet and other polities, as well as a selection of ground vehicles. There's new gear, technologies, and creatures, as well as a complete system for creating your own creatures. A wealth of advice on game mastering Lower Deck style campaigns, whether you're playing a Starfleet campaign or one based on another polity. More than 50 non-player characters to include in your games, pulled from a variety of polities and species. Boy, they sure love that word. A 3-part mini campaign focused on junior officers that can be adapted for use in other eras of play and with crews from any polity. Isn't that like the 5th time they've used the form of that word? Also includes a foreword written by Star Trek Lower Decks creator Mike McMahon, or I should say McMahon. It's not McMahon. McMahon, I think it is. This book does require a Star Trek Adventures core rulebook in order to use. And if you pre-order, you will get the accompanying PDF absolutely free, and you also get it immediately upon your purchase. Now, this is not out over on DriveThruRPG just yet. I will assume it's going to be probably in the next couple of days. You can pre-order the 240-page hardcover for an MSRP of $59.99. It's a little less than that on the Modiphius Entertainment US site. And as I mentioned, if you pre-order, you're going to get that PDF right now, this moment. I watched the first season of Lower Decks. I thought it was fine. I thought it was all right. I have to say, I don't think you have to play it for laughs with the source book. You could play, a regular Trek kind of campaign with this Lower Deck source book. So I thought that's kind of cool as well. Christopher says, Strange New Worlds does need a book, as John Muscola also pointed out. Surely it's in the pipeline. Kevin says, as long as Modiphius has the license, they'll make a book for every series. I would say that you're probably looking at Strange New Worlds second season having to be completed before we see any sort of source book for that, because I kind of get the impression that's what they look at, is they got to have at least 2 seasons. John Muscola says for them, they're not a fan of Lower Decks. Like I said, I thought it was all right. I thought it was fine. I do like Strange New Worlds, although it sort of felt like it lost a little something when it hit about episode 7. Kind of lost a little of its oomph. At least that's how I felt. So Flaming Heron says it's semi-serious, and they want their PDF now. Tessie Trekkie says best part of this 3rd season is the episodes are serious in part. Yeah, I didn't watch the 2nd season or the 3rd season. I only saw the 1st. Like I said, it was one of those shows that I had on while I was working on stuff for the website. It's kind of how I watch most my television or streaming or what have you. Moving right along, currently up for crowdfunding is They Came From the RPG Anthology. And here's the scoop from Onyx Path Publishing. They Came From tabletop role-playing games take your favorite movies, television shows, video games, and pop culture touchstones and turn them into action-packed and wisecracking opportunities to tell your own versions of these cinematic stories. Previous releases have explored B-movie atomic horror from the 1950s. They Came From Beneath the Sea. Twisted tales of horror from the 1960s and 70s. They Came From Beyond the Grave. Quest-filled fantasy adventure stories. They Came From the Cyclops' Cave. And thrilling tales of world-saving espionage. They Came From Classified. They Came From the RPG Anthology is a collection of They Came From genre pieces made available under one cover. Some of the genres featured were pre-selected by the developer. Others will be voted in by backers of this Kickstarter campaign. These individual chapters cover types of movies, TV shows, games, and more that have yet gone untouched in the They Came From Tabletop RPG library. You'll find chapters here dedicated to Westerns in the form of They Came From Cowboys Gulch, and noir in the form of They Came From the Mean Streets. Not the hard city, though. The Mean Streets. Going off the wall a little, we'll also explore costume dramas from the Regency to the Edwardian period with They Came From Bridgeton Rectory, and then transition from the screen to the stage with They Came From the Bard's Quill. You'll also find the much demanded They Came From the Interstellar Starship, as people haven't stopped asking for it since They Came From Beneath the Sea was released. They Came From the RPG Anthology is also a simplification of the system used in They Came From games to date. Within this book, you'll find a quick play rule set based on a streamlined version of the story path system. They Came From the RPG Anthology also includes the story path Ultra rule set as an appendix, so you can retroactively apply it to the existing They Came From games if you want to give them the full story path Ultra experience. This Kickstarter project is very, very near funding. You can reserve a copy of They Came From the RPG Anthology in hardcover with PDF for a $60 pledge, or you can grab just the PDF for a $25 pledge through June 22nd. Expected delivery is November of next year. Sorry to say. I know Sammy really, really likes the Came From series. She has done some reviews for They Came From Beneath the Sea and They Came From Beyond the Grave. So, and she's a fan of the story path system. I would have shared the Kickstarter video, but the music in the video, I didn't even have to upload it. I knew right off the bat that I'd get flagged for copyright violation. So, sorry to say, I am not sharing the video. But this looks pretty interesting. Pretty interesting. I would actually like to get a peek at the physical releases from the They Came From series. So, personally, I would like to take a look at the They Came From Beyond the Grave, because I was a kid with those like 70s movies like Race with the Devil that they kind of, well, I don't know if they're really poking fun at them. I know it's kind of a mix, I shouldn't say mix up, mashup of serious horror and little less serious horror. All right. So there you have it. Moving right along. Okay, this is embarrassing. I don't have this news piece. That is very strange. For some strange reason, it is not in my teleprompter. That's kind of bizarre. So, I don't know. All right, let me pull this up, because this actually looks pretty interesting. And it is One Breath Left. And it is from, I want to say it's Stout. Wait a second, hang on. Now I'm not even looking at the stream. Anyway, it's available through Exalted Funeral. Move with caution. Reclaim useful tools. Track your oxygen levels. Investigate rooms for clues. Reveal the ship's schematics. Survive. One Breath Left is a solo journaling sci-fi horror game played in 1 to 2 hour sessions. You are an explorer tasked with determining what happened aboard a now abandoned spaceship. You'll document what you find while trying to avoid a perilous end. One Breath Left is played across 3 phases. There's the setup. Choose who your explorer is, what contract they have undertaken, and which wreck they are visiting. There's exploration, the body of the game. Use a deck of cards to build a unique derelict wreck to explore. And then the epilogue, concluding the game. Find out if your explorer survives, and if so, what their life is like after their time aboard the wreck. You will use custom deck locations to build a completely unique ship with every playthrough. Start with a set of 20 standard rooms, which you'll customize with 10 non-standard rooms, depending on the different combinations of contracts and wrecks you can choose to explore. You'll be able to explore the wreck. You'll need to spend a limited resource, oxygen. Every breath counts, and you'll need to think ahead as you explore. Delve too far, investigate too thoroughly, and you might not make it back out of the airlock. However, spend too little time aboard the wreck, and you risk failing the demands of your contract. So this is available right now from Exalted Funeral. Carries an MSRP of $32 even. And it also includes the PDF. So I thought this sounded pretty interesting. Although I'll be the first to point out, I've actually never checked out like a journaling game. But I know there are folks out there who really dig these sorts of games. And give me a second here, I will tell you exactly who it is. Stout Stoat Press is who this is from. And of course, I will have a news piece about One Breath Left. Well, first thing in the morning. In the early AM, it will have a link to that publisher as well. So there you have it. Thankfully, I was able to track that down relatively quickly. Like, how did that not end up in my copy of the teleprompter? I do not know. Very, very strange. All right. So that's news for tonight. Now, I really didn't talk about anything from DriveThruRPG, except for the fact that Star Trek Lower Decks campaign guide should probably be showing up there in the next 2-3 days. It's usually how it works when we have a pre-order from Modiphius. So I do want to point out that the Gaming Gang, thus the Dispatch, is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. So if you are going to visit, say, DriveThruRPG or Dungeon Masters Guild, Storyteller's Vault, Wargamers Vault, what have you, please stop by thegaminggang.com first. Click on one of our banner ads. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get a small portion of that sale. And all those nickels, dimes, and quarters really do add up and help keep thegaminggang.com around. If you like this video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Of course, if you like this video, if you dig the channel, if you find thegaminggang.com to be a valuable resource, hell, if you just like what we do, you can always stop on by paypal.me/thegaminggang to make a small donation. And yes, thankfully, our friend the Madman very recently swung on over to the paypal.me site and made a not so small donation. So thank you very, very kindly. So a lot of people out there use either the banner ads or they visit paypal.me. So it is much appreciated. So going back, taking a peek, Kevin says they're getting that video freeze again. All right, let's take a look. Well, once again, it's showing we're dropping a bunch of frames. So let me see. I don't know if I can change this in mid-stream. I cannot. Oh, well. Let's try. I'm going to try this. Yeah, it looks like we hit a period of dropped frames again. Well, don't know what to tell you. I think part of the issue here is I have a halfway decent video card. So I actually do the stream through a desktop computer. I don't have a laptop that processes it. And I've got the equivalent of an i9. So I've got a Ryzen 9 in it. And when I built this is a few years now, I think when I built this, I was doing the show. It was during a period where it was really, really tough to get the video cards because of the crypto nonsense and everybody was buying them up. So I have a halfway decent one. I think it's like 8 gigs off the top of my head. But I think the processing power isn't the greatest. So do not know. So it looks like things have stabilized. Doesn't look like we're dropping more frames again. But you'll have to let me know if it Flaming here that says Crypto Bros got a lot to answer for. Well. Kevin said, yeah, the audio is still good. Yeah, I don't know what the deal is. And the funny thing is, it could be because I use OBS Studio. It could be, even though OBS Studio offers this codec, that's why I'm using it. It may not necessarily be integrated all that well. So that is a possibility. Because you gotta keep in mind, this is free software. So although, gotta point out it's pretty damn good free software. So Flaming Heron says, yeah, it's only been 2 times. So fingers crossed it's just a blip. Let's hope so, because it seemed to do it relatively regularly last night. So, and, like I said before, I know it's not up to my high standards, right? As Flaming Heron had pointed out earlier. But when things go wrong, it does really bug me. Even if it's something I don't have like any control over, it still kind of bugs me. Because I'm one of these people where it's like, I need to know what is the issue and how do I fix it? How do I address it? It's how I learned everything about designing websites and shooting video and audio, even though the audio is still not fantastic. All this stuff I knew nothing about before I got involved with the gaming gang. So there's that. So anyway, I had mentioned I was going to tell you a story about HeroScape. So this has got to be maybe 12 years ago when they pulled the plug on HeroScape. And at that point in time, there weren't a lot of outlets covering tabletop gaming. Probably had fewer than a dozen all in all. And we were actually one of the big ones at the time. Yeah, imagine that. So at that point in time, the gaming gang was spoken of like in the same breath as the Dice Tower and the Spiel and Game On with Cody and John. And the website was kind of spoken in the same breath as like Fortress Ameritrash, stuff like that. So we had some contacts in the industry that they would drop us information, drop us news, because at that point in time, there weren't most of the outlets covering tabletop gaming were all doing reviews. They weren't really doing news. If I remember correctly, I think the Dice Tower did do some news, but really, we were one of the first sites that actually had a dedicated website to news, where we also shared our written reviews and that. So anyway, we would get like some inside dope. So we got a couple of emails from somebody we worked with from Fantasy Flight Games talking about how they were negotiating with Hasbro to purchase HeroScape because they felt that HeroScape would be just, an obvious addition to their lineup of games. So we were not told that we couldn't talk about it. It wasn't like, hey, this is, embargoed or anything like that, or, this is off the record. Because I have had plenty of people in the industry tell me things that are off the record, and they stay off the record. So Elliot and I and posted that we were going to do a special podcast, because at that point in time, we did a podcast together, and we were going to discuss the future of HeroScape. Well, somehow the fans of HeroScape got word of this, and there was like a bulletin board, or like a message board, a forum for HeroScape fans, and they were all posting all over it the link to our upcoming podcast. So we didn't do the podcast live. We recorded it. So anyway, our contact at Fantasy Flight Games saw we were going to be doing that and reached out and said, "Hey guys, you can't talk about that. We're looking to buy it." We're like, "Oh, shit." So we ended up doing the show anyway, because we were kind of dropping hints here and there without actually saying who it was. And then, of course, now we had never said we were going to talk about who was going to pick up the license. We never said anything about that. We said we were going to discuss the future of HeroScape. So, of course, some people were very upset with us. Some of these like real fanatical HeroScape fans, because we were just kind of talking about, hey, there's a company that is in negotiations right now. We can't really tell you who it is. We've been asked not to reveal that, blah, blah, blah. So, of course, nothing happened, obviously enough, right? So then, this isn't too long ago. I think it was the last Origins that I covered. And I did an interview. I can't remember the name of the company. And I actually reviewed one of their games, which was okay. But the person I had interviewed happened to have been one of the designers of HeroScape. So off the record, he told me how he was negotiating to purchase the license for HeroScape from Hasbro. And I thought, I didn't say it, but I thought, how in the world are you going to buy the license to HeroScape? You're a game publisher. You've got one game that's not really even out yet. And it didn't have miniatures or anything like that. I was like, don't see that happening. And of course, obviously now, I mean, he was super nice, don't get me wrong, but it was kind of like, I don't know. I am not seeing that happening. So Sarah D says, technology is great when it works properly. Of course, it can only be as flawless as the people who created it or the people who operate it. All right. So we are going to be diving on into my review of Hard City from Osprey Games in just a moment. But first, I think it's time for a brief intermission. All right, now it's like, why is this not like changing?
That's a good idea. I do feel a little hungry and thirsty.
Okay, let's go to the lobby for a snack. Whoa! Hey, where are you all going?
Why, we're going to the lobby for some of that delicious popcorn.
Popcorn? Hey, wait for old Tex. I'm hungry, too.
Hi there, Tex. Have some popcorn. Beats hay any day.
Well, dust my britches. Just look at that. Candy, popcorn, cold drinks, everything.
Hi, I'm Chili Dilly, the personality pickle. Packed in a jar for the freshest flavor. Served cold in a sack for you to savor. So dainty to eat, no muss, no fuss. An ideal snack for all of us. Crisp, tender, and tasty with a bit of spice. Buy one now. Taste how nice. Snack bar clerks will knock themselves silly, speeding your order for a real chili dilly.
You want a cup of this coffee? It's Red Diamond coffee.
No, give me Brand X.
Okay.
Ooh, that's smart.
Pow! 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 This is fun. This is Pow, Milton Bradley's cannon game for boys. Now, watch these two POW players and see how much fun POW really is. You see, they both line up their soldiers, then they'll take turns firing an enemy. He's loaded his cannon, he aims, and POW! He scores a hit. And now he loads again and fires, POW! Another hit. And loads again, and POW! Another hit. What excitement, what a game. That's POW, Milton Bradley's great cannon game for boys. And what about you girls? Well, Milton Bradley made a game for you called WOW. WOW, the pillow fight game for girls. WOW for girls, POW for boys. They're both at your game store now. Get POW, get WOW.
And now, on with the show.
You'll shoot your eye out, kid. So there you got to see the Brand X Wilkins and Wonkins commercial. Although it was not for Wilkins coffee. I have yet to be able to actually find the Wilkins coffee Brand X that is better than like 240p. It's pretty awful. So that is the Red Diamond or whatever coffee is the sharpest. That is the best one. Flaming Heron says, wow. Yeah, those pillow fights are getting dangerous. Sarah D says, wow, indeed. Yeah, didn't those look like crap? They even look like crap for the day, right? Early 60s, that's kind of what it looked like as far as the almost like a kinescope there. Flicking a little metal ball at little standees. Yeah, okay. Alrighty then. So tonight I am going to share my review of Hard City from Osprey Games. It's written by Nathan Russell with artwork provided by Louis F. Sands. This 160-page hardcover is available now. It's been out since late last year. Carries an MSRP of $25, or you can grab just the PDF alone over at DriveThruRPG for $17.50. So let's swing on over to the other camera because here I've got Hard City. A few things I do want to mention before we jump on in. First of all, the fine folks over at Osprey Games were kind enough to provide me with this review copy. But neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share this review with you. These days, it's very important that you know that. We're also not going to look at each and every page, but I do want to give you a good feel for what's in Hard City. Lastly, my apologies to the folks over at Osprey Games because this is one of the games that I had sent out to somebody who wanted to join the gang. They were going to shoot video reviews, and then I sent out a few games to them, including, I want to say it was 3 Osprey Games releases, and I got nothing in return. So it took a while to get these back, but I did get them back. So my sincerest apologies for taking this long to provide this review. Right, let's jump on in. So Hard City is a noir role-playing game. So we kind of discussed noir when we did the first look, and there were a few recommendations that I kind of disagreed were noir, and we won't get into that debate again. But what you're looking at, noir is usually kind of, it's always post-World War II. It's usually right after the war, like 1946, 47. Very kind of hard-boiled attitude. The women, some women tend to be kind of, I guess I would use, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way either, kind of ball busters. Think of like Barbara Stanwyck in almost every movie she was ever in. That's kind of how women are in noir stories. Not all of them. There's usually, some kind of, demure characters. Yes, Nero's Fiddle, who has joined us in chat, points out the femme fatale. That is another sort of character that we encounter. So, say in The Postman Always Rings Twice or Double Indemnity, we have that sort of heroine in it. Characters are flawed. They are not perfect. They tend to have kind of shaky pasts as well. So one of the aspects of Hard City that I really, really do like is this is super rules light. This is really easy for game masters and players to jump on board with, at least feels to me. Flaming Heron says, usually they're either super masculine or hyper feminine. Yeah, that's a good point. So what happens here is the player characters are going to have pasts and presents. They also have traits. They've got various different kind of boons. They've got their moxie. And I'm going to talk about all of that. So a lot of this is kind of almost like tags. So you'll have various different tags. So like as an example, like past, you might have, well, I'll tell you right here. We've got the trademark. So the trademark is, it's not necessarily your character class sort of thing because it's made up of a past, a present, and a perk. So I'll give you some examples here. So like a button man, you killed people for money, fun, or out of loyalty to a person, organization, or cause. You are a hitman or professional killer. So that's the past. So we've got positives: shoot, pistols, submachine gun, brawl, steel-eyed stare, track, tough, stealth. Now, some flaws could be wanted, dispassionate, trigger happy. Criminal, domestic, drifter, lawman, things like that. Then we have present. So the present is sort of along the lines of your personality. So you could be an enforcer or a finder or someone who's brave or famous or an everyman. And once again, we're going to get some tags that are positives. And then we get some that are going to be faults of the character. So we also have edges. So one of the ways that you create a character is like, my character is good at X because he used to be an Y and he's really good at Z. So that's what the edges are. So we've got trademarks, traits, edges, and tags. So you can easily put together an NPC stat block with just a handful of words because we don't have attributes, because attributes aren't really that important. The traits, the edges, those are what's important, the tags. So what these words do is they paint a picture of the character. Obviously, this is a storytelling game. This is not going to be like a real deep simulation of the United States or urban life in the late 1940s by any stretch of the imagination. But one thing that this game does get is it understands noir. And I love that. I love that quite a lot because there are a lot of games out there that try to capture this feel that just don't do it. A lot of times, now granted, noir mystery isn't a huge genre of role-playing games, but there are a few different titles out there, and they tend to be far more in tune with like 1920s gangsters than film noir of the 1940s and into the early 50s. Although you can still have noir films nowadays. We talked about this when we did the page through. Blade Runner is essentially a noir film. It really is. So you'll have drives, and what drives do is goals that you have. And if you role play to your drives, you earn experience. So we've got that. There are some pretty light rules as far as kind of advancing your character as they gain experience. They get experience for things not going right. So I like that as well. So the core mechanic as far as action resolution are checks. So anytime you're doing something where the outcome isn't certain, this is what it should be for all role-playing games, really. You shouldn't be rolling dice just to roll dice. It should be rolling dice if there's a possibility of something going wrong or not being able to do what you're attempting to do. So we have checks. So what you'll have is you're going to have 6-sided dice. And you're going to have action dice. You're going to have danger dice. So action dice are your advantages, things that are in your favor. So let's say, as an example, it's a car chase, right? And you're driving the car, and one of your past as you were a driver, you a getaway driver. Well, boom, right there, it's going to give you an action die. And maybe you have a trait where here's one thing that I think would be kind of cool if you were like a driver, would be that you can kind of anticipate things just before they happen, right? So that could be a tag, right? So, not that you see the future, but you know what I'm talking about. They can kind of picture something right before it happens so they can respond to it. They can anticipate that. Well, you get another action die. Maybe you get an action die because the car you're driving happens to be a pretty fast car. Well, those would be your action dice. So in order to succeed, you need a 6. Now, the danger dice are what's working against you. So as an example, maybe you would get a danger dice because the car chasing you is firing at you, right? Somebody in the car is firing at you, making it, distracting you. So that would be a danger die. It could be that maybe you're leaking gas, another danger die. So you're going to roll all these dice together. So you're not going to have tons and tons of dice, but it is possible you might be rolling six-sided dice at one time. So you're going to have 2 different colored dice, so you can tell the difference between your action dice and your danger dice. And you're looking to roll 6s on your action dice. So a 6 is a success. A 4 or 5 is a success, but. So a 4 or 5 is that you succeed, but there's a complication. 2 or 3 is a failure, and a 1 is pretty much a critical failure. So what happens is your danger dice will actually cancel out action dice. Now, you have Moxie, which you'll have points that you can use. I always throw out, as an example, kind of to compare them, like bennies, right? They're things that help you, same exact way here in Hard City, except you've got quite a few different uses for them. And one of them is actually to spend a point of moxie in order to change the face of a die one number up or down. So as an example, if you were to roll 5 dice, right? Let's say 3 of them are action dice, 2 of them are danger dice. And on the action dice, you got a 5, and a 1. And on your danger dice, you got a 5 and a 1. Well, the 5 on the danger dice would cancel out one of your 5s on your action dice. The 1 would cancel out the other 1. So you'd be left with a 5, which would be a success. But there's a complication. So a little similar in approach as games which are powered by the apocalypse, because powered by the apocalypse games have that succeed but, and they also have fail but. Well, we don't have the fail but there's a consequence, or well, there's a positive aspect, I guess it would be. We do have the succeed, yet there is some sort of dire consequence. So your ones are considered botches. They call them botches that you'll have that kind of like critical failure. Agent Especial is with us, as is Scott B. Smith. Agent Especial says, wasn't this reviewed already? No, we did a first look at this. I did not do a review. So, and there's some discussion of the Smiths being related. Scott Smith says, not related, but we all attend quarterly meetings. That's pretty funny. As Madman points out, his wife's maiden name is Smith. So with Moxie, you'll usually have 3 or 4 points of Moxie that you can spend to change things. Like improve the level of success, right? So you could take like a 5, make it a 6. So you take it from a success but to a success. So you have that. And then when you use your Moxie, the only way you can kind of refresh your Moxie points is if one of your flaws comes into play. And I like that a lot. I thought that was a very cool aspect of the game where you can't refresh your Moxie points until one of your flaws comes to the fore and actually is involved in what's going on in the game. And it can't just be, oh, well, something really minor. It's got to be something that really does move the story along. So the story itself, the gameplay itself is scene-based. So you are looking at just kind of going from point to point. And the rules themselves, pretty light. I mean, all in all, you're probably looking, the vast majority of the page count to the rules section is character creation. For the most part, that's what you're really looking at. About half the book is devoted to kind of the game master, kind of setting the scene and discussing what life is like in the United States in, there you go, 1946. Kind of gives you, like, we've got cost of living, and it talks about, justice and crime and story beats that you would want to pick up on in a noir story. So there's no reference to like real cities. So for Hard City, but we do have some different sorts of cities. One thing I always found was kind of interesting is listening to old time radio shows because I am a fan, and I will talk about them in a moment. How many mystery series were set in San Francisco? There were a lot. There are quite a lot of them. We also get some cases. So these are example investigations, which will pretty much break down how you present the game and how you can create your own adventures. I will mention, I don't know if I see this being the sort of system that you're going to have a lot of character growth in a campaign. I could see this being the sort of game that maybe you strung together a campaign of 10 to 12 sessions where you had a storyline in the hard city. But I don't know if this is the sort of game that you'd be playing for years on end, which I kind of think is one of the aspects of storytelling games that I don't think people talk about enough, is that they don't necessarily always make for really good campaign games. But as far as a one shot or a couple of sessions, this is excellent. This really is very nicely presented. Now, what I would recommend, and I've talked about this quite a lot, is for any game master out there to listen to old time radio shows, because listening to old time radio shows is really helpful in allowing you to build the skills of painting a picture with words alone, because that was crucial for radio shows, because you had to use the listener's imagination and you had to paint the picture. Now, sometimes it's not always, presented as well as it could be. Now, some shows were better than others, but a lot of times you would have a situation where it's like, Barbara, do you see the man across the street with a white hat? It's like, oh, the one clutching the newspaper? Yes, him. That was kind of But there are some excellent mystery shows that you can check out. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, was a very long-running show. And what it is, the main character is an insurance investigator, which you could very easily have adventures and tie them together where one of your characters is an insurance investigator and they're looking into, mysterious deaths that someone's trying to claim the insurance money on. Perry Mason. Most people don't realize Perry Mason was a 10-minute show weekdays on the radio, and he was far more like the HBO version of Perry Mason, where he would actually get his hands dirty, as opposed to the television Perry Mason with Raymond Burr, who it was just, he was a lawyer. He was an excellent lawyer. So we've got that. We also have, if I remember correctly, it's called Candy Manson. It only ran for a couple of years, but it is a woman PI in San Francisco. That was a pretty good show also. So I would definitely recommend those, not only to help you with your game mastering skills, but to also give you inspiration for stories. Very, very easy to get your hands on those. I also point out, if you're looking at old-time radio shows, do not buy them. There are a lot of people out there, a lot of online sellers who, will sell you MP3s of old-time radio shows, and they're like, oh, well, we own the rights to this. No, that is not true. They are all public domain. Even the shows from, I think the show's from the 60s because old time radio, essentially, they consider it died out in like 62. I think those are even public domain. So don't go to archive.org. Archive.org is a fantastic source for old time radio shows. But enough about old time radio shows. Let's swing on over to the other camera because I'm going to share my final thoughts and give Hard City a review score. I like this a lot. This is actually one of my favorite of the Osprey Games role-playing games. Now, of course, I like Jackals too. I think Jackals is really well done. But as far as a rules-like game that's going to be very easy for an experienced game master to come to grips with mechanically, I mean, maybe a couple of read-throughs, and we're talking just a rules section, and they're going to have it down pat. I mean, there's enough crunch to it to make it interesting. Like with combat, you know, we've got different like levels of wounds and things like that, and you're allowed to have 3 wounds. And after that, even if they're light wounds, you take another wound, you're dying. Somebody better help you out. So I mean, there's a little bit of crunch there, but for the most part, super easy for players and game masters to grasp and get a handle on. There's a lot of advice for the game master as well on how to create a noir storyline and different aspects that you want to include in your stories. Little window dressing you can use as well. I like the way the characters are created and put together, where you don't have attributes. You have tags. You have traits. You've got a past. You've got a present. You may not have a future. But, if you were a boxer, well, okay, so one of your tags is going to be strong. Do we need to have an attribute of strength in order to portray that in the game? No, not at all. So I really like the mechanics. Like I said, it feels a little bit similar in some ways to the Apocalypse engine without actually rolling 2 6-sided dice to resolve action. So I like the action dice. I like how you've got the danger dice that cancel out the action dice, and you got your moxie points, so you can kind of manipulate the die rolls and that. A lot of fun. I could really see people having a very good time with one-shots and fairly short storylines with Hard City. A couple of things I do want to mention. One, as I pointed out, I don't know if this system would be... I got to be honest, I don't picture long campaigns with a game such as this, even though there are some advancement rules here. And it's from Osprey Games. I don't know if we'll ever see anything other than this book, because that's how many of the role-playing games have been for Osprey Games. It's a one and done. It gets published and then that's it. Except for like Jackals. Jackals has had some additional content that's come out, an adventure book, and I want to say there was an expansion book. Other than that, usually the Osprey Games RPGs just get a core book and that is it. And that might be the case here. And that's unfortunate because I'd like to see this system kind of built upon a little bit. Maybe even using this to have more of like 1920s kind of gangbusters. Should also point out there is absolutely no horror in here, which actually is kind of unusual for some of these mystery games, because most of these mystery games kind of toss in some, if you want to throw the mythos in, there's usually a chapter, right? Not so here. This is straight out noir. So very nice. On a scale of 0 to 10, I give Hard City a solid recommendation. I like it a lot. I give it an 8 out of 10. I do ding it because I don't know how much long-term campaign play you can get out of this system. And unfortunately, I ding it because it's Osprey Games, and I don't know if we're going to see anything else for this, if it's just going to be one and done. So, but still, if you are interested in a noir role-playing game, and you don't want to be tackling like 5e mechanics and things like that, I certainly recommend picking up Hard City. Flaming Heron says, was it a lack of sales for them, do I think? I don't know, to be honest. Just like Crescendo of Violence, that was another RPG that I had sent to this person who will remain nameless. I'm not going to be a jerk about it. That came out. I don't think there's anything for that either. So I don't know if it's sales or if it's just the powers that be over at Osprey Games sit there and they take a look at something that's been submitted and they go, oh yeah, hey, we like this. You know, I don't know if they assign a developer, I would take a guess, just me personally, that the creators probably have to get their own developer. Just by guess here. And then if Osprey Games purchases it from them or makes a deal to publish it, I think that's kind of it. So I think Jackals has gotten some additional content, mainly because of the creator. So something else I think happens, I can't say I know this for sure, but I thought I've heard kind of through the grapevine that some of the authors of some of the role-playing games that have been released from Osprey Games, and there have been a few, some of them tend to like publish content on their own websites. So, I don't know. Flaming Heron says, just crazy. I love their games, but I want content before I get invested. See, that's why I give it an 8, because I don't think we're going to see I don't know. I mean, it could have a supplement come out. I don't know. I honestly do not know. I have not seen anything mentioned in the pipeline. So, and that's kind of an Osprey Games thing. If it's not a miniatures game, so like Frostgrave, they released a lot of stuff from Frostgrave. Just had that news piece I talked about, that the Wildwoods, which we will actually be taking a look at. So anyway, I think it's pretty cool. And $25, that's not bad. Usually these are 30 or 35 for this size. Although, yes, it is 160 pages. Most of the RPGs that come out from Osprey Games are a little longer as far as the page count. But still, $25 for this. And production quality is nice. It'll hold up at your game table. All righty. So, let's see. John Mascola said, I actually listen to old-time radio shows on YouTube. Some are great, like Sherlock Holmes versus Dracula. That's a good one. I didn't realize that's an old-time radio show. I have actually listened to, is it Dark Tales Radio? Where they do the dramatizations of the H.P. Lovecraft stories. In fact, they've got a dramatization of Massive Nyarlathotep, although they don't pronounce it Nyarlathotep like I do. Because, like I said, I think I pronounce it wrong, but I've been doing that for over 40 years, so I think I'll stick with it. But the new adventures of Sherlock Holmes were pretty good. That actually had Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce, who played Holmes and Watson in those old movies that we've all seen, right? That as kids, that used to be on like Saturday afternoons at 2:00 on our UHF channels and stuff. Yeah, that's going back. That's going back a ways. But that's pretty good. And they actually adapt some of the Sherlock Holmes stories, and then some are new. So some of them are not based on the published works. So, but yeah, pretty cool. Alrighty. So that is it for this time out. This is the last show of the week. So next week, Tuesday, remember, we're going to be taking a look at Organic Towns from Headless Hydra Press. Then on Wednesday, we will have a Wargame Wednesday because we are going to look at Days of Ire, Budapest, 1956 from Mighty Boards. Remember I mentioned yesterday I had a Wargame shipment coming. We're going to be taking a look at this. And I also got Knights of Fire, which is also the Battle for Budapest, or Budapest, if you want to go with that pronunciation, also from Mighty Boards. So I understand that Days of Ire is 1 to 4 players. And if you're playing it with multiple players, you can play it where one player is a Soviet player and the rest are revolutionaries. Or you can play it where everyone's revolutionaries and the Soviet is AI. Or you can play it solitaire. So I think this looks very, very interesting. You may remember I did a review of Vigilante, which was from Mighty Boards, that was released from Greenbrier Games. And I guess they are not really working with Greenbrier Games anymore. I don't know what's going on with Greenbrier Games, because all they really have is like what the Barbarians game with the like bears. And I think they're still doing some folklore, but I don't know. Scott says, you and I remember Budapest very differently. Yes. So I also got Days and Nights, the Red Army pack. So it's the miniatures that can be used with Days of Ire and Knights of Fire. So I thought that was kind of cool too. So next Wednesday will be a Wargame Wednesday with a look at Days of Ire. And then on Thursday's show, a week from today, I will be reviewing Lord of the Rings role-playing 4.5e from Free League Publishing. I've got some interviews I'm working on setting up as well with some cool stuff that's on the horizon. And of course, I mentioned this earlier. A week from Tuesday, I'll be reviewing Dog Park with a week full of board game reviews here on The Dispatch. So, very nice. Very, very nice. Also should mention, don't forget, you can still get into running for my Forbidden Lands contest, where I am giving away PDFs of the core set, the Blood March, as well as Book of Beasts from Free League Publishing to one lucky viewer. And it's super easy to get in the running. Be a subscriber, like the videos, and comment on the live shows. So through the 14th of the month, every comment, and you only get one per video, so multiple comments do not count. They got to be legitimate comments too. But that counts as an entry. So there are already people out there with multiple entries for the contest, but there is still plenty of time to get into the running. All righty. If you like this video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We're rapidly approaching 11,000 subscribers. With all those subscribers, you'd think the videos would get more views. I'm going to subscribe to this channel even though I don't like the content. I don't know. Anyway, if you do subscribe, ding the bell, because it'll not only let you know when the Dispatch streams live Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday nights. Yes, I remembered once again. Right here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central. It'll also inform you when I upload other videos, such as this month's edition of Why You Should Play, where I discuss why you should play 7th edition Call of Cthulhu from Chaosium Inc. Sweet. Everybody who watched live, thank you very much. If you watched live and took part in chat, tip of the cap to you, because not only are you keeping me company, you're keeping each other company as well. But of course, I know a lot of you out there, you don't have an opportunity to watch live. Doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. Thank you very much for watching any of the videos here on the Gaming Gang channel. Enjoy the rest of your week. Have a great weekend. I will be back on Tuesday. And of course, I also hope each and every one of you gets to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang. Oh, hey, you're still here. Well, that's okay. You don't have to leave just yet. In fact, why don't you subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel right here, or take a peek at the latest live stream, or even find out what YouTube recommends you check out from the channel. And of course, I'm Jeff McAleer. Thanks again for watching.